All right. Um, all right. It's 9:25, so I'll stop there and open up for some time of questions. I hope I was clear. And if you have any questions, if you want me to repeat certain things, if I was unclear about certain things, just let me know and we'll go from there. Uh, Pastor, the floor is open, however you want to take it up from here.
Sure. All right. Okay, we have a question
Oh,
asked by Sister Niharika. How, as leaders, do we bring in discipline into our teams in church, given to the fact that most people get offended when you try to discipline them? Discipline in time management, attending meetings, etc.
yeah, that's a great question, and I think that's something that, especially in certain contexts, more than others, people get offended because I spent some time in the U.S. and then now I spent quite some time in India as well as a associate pastor and then now as a pastor myself. People are quick to get offended, and so I think it becomes the responsibility of the leader from the beginning. And now, whatever I say is not a 100% solution for this, because you're dealing with people. As long as you're dealing with, you're not dealing with cardboard boxes. Stack them up this way and they will not fall. That's not what you're dealing with. People, you're dealing with people with emotions, you're dealing with people with history, you're dealing with people with backgrounds, you're dealing with people are just complex. And so it's not a one size fits all a strategy when it comes to any of these things. But there are certain principles that we still need to live by. So, for example, it still is the responsibility of the leader to set out certain expectations from the beginning itself. All right. So, for example, one of the things, not that we do it perfectly by any means, but one of the things that we say in our church is that nobody has a permanent spot in our church. Nobody. It's not based on seniority. It's not based on age. It's not based on skill. It's not based on any of those things. Because at the end of the day, every single one of us, whether it's me, whether it's my wife, whether it is whoever it is that's participating in this organization and moving the church ahead, we want to make sure that we bring our best to God and to the people that we are serving. So, for example, if there is someone else that can do a job better than me in a particular area, then as a leader, it is my responsibility to move out of the way and usher them into that position. And so the reason why I'm saying that is, Sister, I think, Niharika, is because I think if you start setting that standard from the very beginning, then people begin to understand. And this is by no means easy, because that doesn't come naturally to most people. And so you've got to say this again and again and again and again. And the first 10 times you try to discipline someone, move someone, shuffle someone, ruffle some feathers, they're going to be offended. But you've got to know you're in the middle of the process, so don't quit. So 10 people get offended, it's okay. Keep moving forward. Maybe by the 57th time this happens, they'll start getting it. Oh, wait a minute. This has nothing to do with me. This has nothing to do with my personality. It's not that Pastor was upset with me. It's not that he doesn't like me. It's just how we need to function. It's just how the organization has to function. It's just how the church has to function. And so, again, I think it's ongoing again and again and again and again and again. Sometimes, just like kids, now I have two daughters, as I mentioned earlier, and sometimes my daughters might feel like I don't like them, or that their mother doesn't like them, or that both of us don't like them, or whatever the case. But eventually they'll get to know, hey, it's not that they don't like us. In fact, they love us. And sometimes they just have to do certain things that we don't necessarily like at this time, but they'll get used to it. And the only thing that I would add to that is just make sure your heart is in the right place when you're doing that. And like I said before, don't do it out of selfish motive. Don't correct just because you don't like. don't try to discipline people and correct people because you didn't have it your way. Then you're being equally immature as a leader. All right. So you've got to think long and hard enough, again, knowing that it is a temporary responsibility, saying, okay, I really don't like how they're behaving right now. I need, and take the time to make sure that you don't have any selfish motive, selfish gain, or whatever going on. And then you and leadership and pain and to making those tough calls is just part of leadership, and that's what we're called to do, and we need to do those things boldly. Yeah. Okay. So I think the second question, thank you so much. Okay. What are the keys to be self-motivated as a leader? All right, I think self-motivated as a leader, I think you need to go back to, again, let me answer it from a ministry standpoint, all right? If you are a person in ministry, and it's Rajashekar, brother, if you're in the ministry, then I would say go back to the call. Go back to why you began the process in the first place. Go back to why you started in ministry in the first place. People who, again, from what I've seen, people who quit in ministry are people who usually have forgotten why they got started in the first place, or started with the wrong motive in to begin with. They started with the wrong motive. Okay, there's a job opening in the church. Someone wants to hire me in this ministry. Looks like a good opportunity, so I'll get into ministry. Bad way of getting into the ministry. That's a terrible way of getting into the ministry. You're not going to last. Why? Because you're definitely going to go through some hell. You're definitely going to go through some tough situations in your life. And during those times, if your only cause, again, if your only cause for getting into the ministry was, well, there's a little opportunity and I could make some money on a monthly basis, and I didn't have a job anyway, so I took up the job. Well, guess what? You're going to run out of the job when it's uncomfortable. You're not going to adjust. You're not going to be inconvenienced. You're not going to obey. You're not going to carry the responsibility. All of the things that we talked about, and you move out of the place. But if you, I think so. To be motivated is, again, going back to knowing why you've been called, why you took that decision, and moving forward. Now, from a if you're a business leader or if you're working for someone, motivated, again, knowing that there is a responsibility over your life, that every single day, every single opportunity has been given to you by God. And when you know that this has been given to you by God, then you've got to say, okay, God, help me. I'm depending on you. Holy Spirit, you lead me, guide me, stretch me, teach me. What is it that I need to do? How do I shake things up? And on a practical basis, maybe you're close to getting burnt out. Maybe you're doing something for a long time, and maybe you just need to take a break, and maybe you need to go on a vacation. Maybe you need to just take 3 days break and say, okay, no cell phone, no email. Inform your leaders and say, I just need a break. So for the next 3 days, I'm going away to my village, to my town, or if you have the resources, going out on vacation. Well, right now, I don't think anybody's thinking about going on a vacation, but when the time comes, going on a vacation, doing whatever, right? Taking a break, listening to some music, spending time with family, watching a movie, and whatever it is, relax. And sometimes just taking those practical steps. Some of you might like to read a book, whatever rejuvenates you, recharges you, doing that, and then coming back stronger than you were before. I think that's going to be helpful. How do you handle biases as a leader? Our opinion of people and situations. Biases, again, that's a great question. Alka, great question. I think most people don't even pay attention to biases. So it's a great question to even consider, because again, it's like our blind spots. And how do you take care of blind spots? You need somebody else helping you out. So when you're driving, how do you look at the blind spots? You use the help of the mirrors, all right? In India, we don't, but in normal cases, you should, okay? So you need to take care of the blind spots by looking at the side mirrors and the back mirror. And so what I was taught is how the way you look at the blind spots is, number one, is you take a look at the front mirror, and then you look at the side mirror, and sometimes you still have to look back, because the blind spot is when the car is between those two mirrors and you don't know that there's a car, and you move into the next lane. So the biases are the same thing as a leader, and every one of us have biases. So therefore, you need someone else in your life that you can talk to and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is how I feel about this person. This is, I've tried to talk to them. They still don't pay attention. They're still late. They always submit their stuff late. They're never on time, and they don't have the right attitude. In fact, they have such a bad attitude that it is spreading to the rest of the team. What do I do? And so you confirm that with a couple of people, and then you need to make the decision that you need to make as a leader. All right. I hope that's helpful, Sister Alka. All right. Well, if leader fails to be a role model in between the journey of Christian life, because the leader also is learning to keep up with God, but the leader is not respected at the church as the same after the fall. So how do you restore things? Again, I would say depending on your position or your role as a leader in the church, the answer is going to be given. For example, if you are just a member of the church, and you know somebody for whatever reason did something they were not supposed to do, and they don't currently have the position, your role is not to criticize in any way, shape, or form. Your role is to love on them. Your role is to pray for them, and that's it. And especially if they were somebody who had a position over you, right? Then you have no job basically criticizing them and talking about them in public in a negative light. Now, this is by no means am I saying cover up people's sins and don't, if they did something horrible, even if it hurt other people, don't tell that to anyone. No, that's not what I'm talking about. All right, because there's a place, and that's why I said depending on your position and role, because there should be other people in the church that are handling that. Okay, again, if you think about the family, if one of my daughters makes a mistake, it's not the job of my younger daughter to start correcting the older daughter. No, you keep your mouth shut. Mom and dad are here, and we're going to do what we need to do, and we're going to help Christina with this. We're going to help Ivanka with this, but you don't have to get involved. All right. And you don't go out and talk to the cousins, and you don't go talk to the neighbors and say, this is what my sister did. No, you don't. Okay. Just keep it where it is. Mom and dad will handle this. Okay. And so if you are somebody in that position, then depending on the situation, depending on the circumstance, now, because I can't give any specifics because this is such a broad topic. You can be talking about someone just, stealing 500 rupees from the offering, to someone sexually abusing somebody. So the it's a broad subject, and so the reaction or the way things need to be dealt with is not going to be the same for every single person, and so you've got to take it by that. With vertical promotion in kingdom leadership, how do we deal with pride, which leads to taking offense quickly with associate leaders? Again, I think, Sharon, I think always remembering, so let me make sure I get this right. How do we deal with pride? So you're talking about, let's say I'm getting promoted and I'm having issues with other people that are in the organization. How do I'm thinking you're saying, how do I protect myself from becoming offended very quickly or walking in pride? And if that's what you're asking, then I would say, always going back to Jesus, always understanding that the role or the vertical increase that you are seeing, or the promotion that you are seeing, is by God. It's not by you. If it's by God and if it's not by you, how can you get prideful? The only reason we get prideful is because we forget the fact that it was by God. The reason we get prideful is because we think, hey, it's my good looks that got me up here. It's my brilliant preaching that got me up here. It's my brilliant singing. It's my brilliant charisma. It's my brilliant whatever. Fill in the blank. And you think it's because of you that you're so high up. Just remember, wait a minute, it's God who called me in the first place. It's the grace of God. Then you always stay humble. So depending, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, everyone knows this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him. When you acknowledge God in all your ways from the very beginning, wait a minute, God, the reason why I even have a call on my life is because of you. The real reason why I'm even in this church is because of you. The real reason why I'm a pastor in this church is because of you. The real reason I'm a janitor in this church is because of you. The real reason I'm a worship leader is because of you. If you are not in this thing, then I can't even be a janitor. I can't be whatever it is. So when you understand that, if you depend on him in all your ways, if you acknowledge him in all your ways and start off with that foundation, then you don't let pride get in. And so again, the original sin was not Adam and Eve biting into the fruit. The original sin was the devil in the book of Isaiah thinking, I will ascend, I will become, I will, thinking what? It's going to be me, forgetting that he was made by God in the first place. And so I think the way you protect yourself from pride is always remembering the source of your promotion. When you understand you're not the source of your promotion, then you protect yourself from pride. All right. What if, okay, I think this was Angeline. It says, what if you failed? I think this is a continuation. What if you failed as a role model for no fault of yours, but of someone else, and there was brutal character assassination, and you feel like you are a disgrace to the kingdom? Number one, if there was a character assassination, you're not a disgrace for the kingdom. There's no such thing as a disgrace for the kingdom. The only disgrace for the kingdom is, I guess, if you have an unrepentant heart. That's the only disgrace. But like, it doesn't matter what you did. If you have a repentant heart, there's no disgrace for the kingdom. And that's what makes this kingdom the kingdom of God. It is founded on the grace of God. And if there is no grace, then there's nobody getting into the kingdom. All of us are looking from the outside in, and nobody gets inside the kingdom. And so number one. Number two is, if it was of no fault of your own, if this was a character assassination, there's nothing that you need to worry about. There's nothing that you need to worry about. Don't protect yourself. That's not your job. Don't defend yourself. It's not your job. It's God's job to defend you. It's God's job to protect you. It's God's job to establish you. It's God's job to elevate you, to promote you. Whatever it is, it's God's job. Remember, you didn't come into the kingdom on your own. You didn't come up with the plan to do what you're doing in the kingdom. It's all him. So if it's all him, why are you protecting yourself? Why are you? And this is the thing. Like, and so it's. I'm not saying this is easy. But I've been in certain situations of this nature, and I can testify. Every single time I didn't defend myself, God has defended me. Every single time, God has defended me. And so I think it's important not to defend yourself. And again, don't live with this dependency of having an approval from people that have done something against you. You don't need that. Now, I'm not saying don't go to the other extreme, because I also see some people go to the other extreme of becoming arrogant. Like, I don't need your approval. I don't need you. No. We're still connected. We're the body. We all need each other. We all need each other. So as much as, you might not like what they did, you don't, it's this living in this dichotomy of I don't need your approval, but I want you. Not, I want you because I can't live without you. It's not, I want you because I desperately need you. And no, no, no. I want you because you're still in the body of Christ. So I forgive you. And God's going to do whatever he needs to do. He'll figure it out. He'll solve this situation. My favorite story in the Bible, at least one of my favorite, is the story of David and Saul. David did nothing wrong in that case. Now, he did a bunch of other things that were wrong in his life later on, but at least at that point, he didn't do anything wrong in the case of Saul. But he didn't defend himself. And even when he tried in a very small way, when he cut off the robe, when he tried, his conscience bothered him. Why? Because it was never his role. He was doing something that God needed to do. So don't ever take up that responsibility of trying to do something that is God's job. You do yours. God is more than faithful. He's more than capable of doing his job. All right? Okay. All right. How do you deal? And Pastor, I'm fine with the time. You let me know if we need to stop, and then we stop. All right. So at any time you can just interrupt.
We still have 10 more minutes to go, so you can.
Okay.
You're good.
All right, sir. Okay. How do you deal with burnout as a leader when the burnt out leader wants a break? The church views it as lack of dedication. Niharika, I would say, if you feel burnt out, and if you're if you're the pastor, or if you're the person in charge, then I would say you need to have some kind of support system, some kind of team that you develop. And if you don't have that developed, you need to start working on that very quickly, so that other people can help you. And it doesn't matter what other people think. If you really feel like you're getting burnt out, take the break. Take the break. I don't know what that break looks like, because I don't know you. I don't know the exact situation that you're in currently right now, but you need to take the break, because at the end of the day, the sheep are not going to come and protect you, help you, and do whatever they need to do. When this lockout started in India, I mean, the whole thing was miraculous the way it happened for us here. It just so happened that for everyone that's watching in India, that the Prime Minister came and told us that the lockdown is going to start Sunday morning at 6 a.m. And he told us that on a Saturday evening. So we were thinking, okay, what the heck should we do with our services? So we ran to the church. And I got ready, the team went, they got the cameras and everything. We were there till about 4 something in the morning, recording everything for Sunday morning. We rush home, and when we're coming home, one of the guys on the team says, why don't we just take the lights and cameras with us? And so they load up everything. We rush home in the morning, quickly start editing, and then we play the videos for the live stream. And we're stuck in the house with the guys and with the equipment. So starting that Monday, every single day for nearly 4 weeks, I preached twice a day. We went live in the morning and in the evening, morning and in the evening, morning and evening, every single day. And by the end of that 4th week, I was done. I couldn't move, because I'm not sleeping, I'm not getting enough, because I'm preparing for new sermons, I'm praying, and then I'm getting ready. And because of everything going on, I have 8 guys in a 3-bedroom house with my wife and then children. So I'm not having a vacation by any means. In fact, somebody was one day, they said, Pastor, I think you're having a good break. I said, this is the hardest that I've worked in my life during the lockdown. And the people were thinking I was having a break. I said, no, in no way, shape, or form am I having a break. But after that, I said, okay, we need to take a break, not just for me, just for the team, because these guys were working like crazy. And so it didn't matter what anyone else thought. We said, okay, we need to take a break, and we took the break, and then you get recharged, and make sure that when you take the break, that it's a productive break. Not productive meaning not that you read 100 books and come back and all of that. I'm saying that it is really restful. What is the purpose of taking the break? That you are rejuvenated. So make sure you are doing things that will actually rejuvenate you, and then you come back stronger, and then you do what you need, what needs to be done. Okay. Why do we title so much on the word leader nowadays instead of the word servant or steward? Even it's most mentioned in New Testament. It is the world, corporate style influence. Again, servant, you can talk about it. Again, the Christian phrase for it is servant leader or servant leadership. I mean, you can use the word servant, you can use the word leader. Again, I think if you just use the word servant when you're talking in a broader sense, I don't think many people would understand that meaning. Just like, for example, if you go to other parts of the world and the Bible talks about slaves, for example, but you don't want to use the word slave when you're talking to people. Because it's not going to, get the right meaning across. Now you can say, no, this is not what I meant. I meant by in the Greek word, and then this the way it's written in the Bible. Like when you're just speaking, you don't want to say, now all of you slaves, listen to what I have to say. You don't want to have a slave conference coming up next week, and that kind of thing. And so, it's just a phrase, a word that we're using. But I agree. You can now, for example, in our church, we don't use the word volunteers, right? Now, I don't have anything against any church using the word volunteer. In our church, we always say you're a servant leader. If you're serving, you're a servant leader. Because again, in the Indian context, for example, when you listen to the word servant, what kicks into your mind? You're not thinking like a leader when you're thinking like a servant. So it's all based on context. So again, you can come up with your own phrase for your organization, for your church, for your team. So for me, that's why I use servant leadership. And I have to, again, I primarily deal with educated people, young people, and all of that. But the reality is most of them don't think like leaders. And so every single time I speak to them, I say, hey, don't forget you're servant leaders. Well, why do we need to do it? Because you're a servant leader. Why do we need to come earlier than everyone else? Because you're a servant leader. Why do we need to stay late than everyone else? Because you're a servant leader. I just wore a suit. Why do I need to clean the bathroom? Because you're a servant leader. Everything's a servant leader. So you create the culture in your context. In a world that values multitasking, how does one identify their unique contribution, core responsibility? Again, Luis, or Lewis, if I pronounce it wrong, I'm sorry, but I think that's the challenge. And that's what you have to wrestle with. And that's where you need to say, okay, what is my unique contribution, and stick with it. And that's why what I said was those questions are not going to be something that you spend the next 1 hour and come up with the whole thing. You're going to have to wrestle with that for days, weeks, months, and then think through it, refine it, and then you will come to the right place of what it is that your core responsibility is. All right. So it's a time-consuming thing, but I think if you go through it, it's going to be helpful at the end. All right. How do you lead someone who doesn't believe in accountability or hears you but doesn't listen? How do you lead someone who doesn't believe in accountability? How do they not believe in accountability? So maybe they want to do things their own way. If you take the time to explain to them that that's just how the world works, number one, they want accountability from other people. See, like, it's not like if they go to their bank and the bank says, oh, yeah, we just lost all your money, have a nice day. She's not going to be happy about it. If she goes to her hotel and say, oh, we lost your reservation, have a happy, nice day, she's not going to be happy. Why? Because they were not accountable with her money. They were not accountable with her reservation. How can you function without accountability? So that's just it's a flawed mindset. I think you just need to take the time to sit with her or him and just say, you need to get your head right. Uh, you're expecting this from everyone else, so it's not wrong for me to expect that out of you as well. Everybody, there's not a person in this world that doesn't want accountability. They want accountability. They look for accountability from other people. Now they might not want to be that, but that's just immaturity, and you have to develop them or at least help them see. And even after you show them and all of that, if they don't want to be, then it's your responsibility as the leader to say, okay, uh, you're fired, have a nice day, or we need to move you at that point. Okay. um, okay, could you please suggest some good books on servant leadership? um, all right. Servant, well, there's one by Oswald Sanders. It's a very old classic, but it's called Servant Leadership, and it's just biblical principles on servant leadership. It's an old book, but it's a classic book on servant leadership. I would recommend that. Take a look at that. And honestly, when it comes to servant leadership, practical stuff, John Maxwell stuff, especially 21 Laws of Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, going back to the very beginning days of leadership. Failing Forward by John Maxwell. Um, um, I think it was 17 Indisputable Laws of Teamwork by John Maxwell. John Maxwell foundational books on leadership will serve you whether you're in the corporate world or the church world, because he comes from a Christian perspective. He might not have verse on every single page because he's writing for the corporate world as well, but it's absolute biblical principles underlying all of those things. So that's a good place. And Niharika, you can just communicate directly through to me or with Dinakar. I'll send you a list of books that will be helpful for you at a later time as well. Okay. Productive birth. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Looks like that's it. I think I've covered everything. Yeah.
Wow, I think this session had the most amount of questions asked, and I'm sure there are so many people that are, you're still with, holding yourself back from asking questions, but we still want to give you an opportunity to ask those questions to Pastor Ben by just, writing to us at contact@kvglobal.org, and then we're going to forward those questions to Pastor Ben, if that's okay with you, Pastor Ben.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Yeah, and I think this was such a fruitful time we've had in weeks now. So I must tell you that although all the sessions have been such a great blessing, and this is one session, I must tell you that you pulled off so well, so amazing. You gave us the insight into what is, how practically we can work out this whole thing, and it's more of a lifestyle. It's not something that is an event oriented, something of that type, but it's more of a lifestyle. And I really want to thank you for that. Pouring into our lives and pouring into the upcoming leaders, and also the pastors and leaders on this group. And I'm sure they're all blessed. Amen. So, can we all here, just go ahead and give a round of applause to Pastor Ben? Just appreciate him by just going ahead. There's a reaction button on the bottom of your screen. Maybe you can just go ahead and give a thumbs up, give a clap. Go ahead and give some love. Okay. Um, Fantastic, Pastor Ben. Thank you once again for being on this platform. Global School of Missions is a vision that we're preparing so many students, so many people from around the world, with a heart of reaching the lost, discipling the church, discipling the body of Christ, and going back into Matthew 28, Mark 16, uh, you know, following the book of Acts, and that is something that we're seeing an overflow happening here at GSM. And as a result of our previous GSM sessions, we had so many people rise up and plant churches, go on a mission trips. Um, you know, so many souls getting saved, and we keep getting these reports from different people from different parts of the world of what has been happening, and it's so exciting, and we rejoice with these testimonies. So yes, Pastor Ben, that's what the Global School of Missions is doing right now, and we
Yes,
we
sir.
we hope to have you back. We really want to have you back for another session very soon.